Sometimes positive comments have negative consequences. Today I'll show you 3 such instances and what to do about it. Hello and welcome to Communication Psychology. My name is Gerhard. I'm a psychologist from Hamburg, Germany, living here in the Republic of Moldova, and I'm specialized in international, intercultural and multilingual contexts. Now, we are not going to talk today about sexist comments like, "Oh, you look really handsome today, Miss Smith." Also, we are not going to discuss the idea prevalent in many countries all around the world, especially in the former Soviet Union, in Moldova too, that we shouldn't praise somebody unless we want to spoil him or her. And there are still quite a lot of supervisors, team leaders, parents, husbands, wives that consider that feedback should be given only as a corrective measure if something went wrong. But for lots of people I personally know and have met professionally and privately, it's unthinkable to validate someone's achievement. We don't want to have a spoiled child, husband, wife, or employee. Now, the first instance is documented in research done by Carol Dweck from the University of Stanford. She's known for her international bestseller, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. In the 1990s, she published an article with, I think it was Karen Muller, showing that praise for abilities or intelligence can undermine children, students' academic success. In her studies, in her experiments, students, had to solve different intellectual tasks, maybe intelligence tests like exercises. And first they got easy exercises for their age group. And one group of children was praised for effort or for strategy, and another group was praised for intelligence. "Oh, you are really smart. You are so intelligent." Then all the children got 2 difficult exercises, and all children experienced some kind of failure. And then they got a 3rd set of exercises which were of the same level as the first set. So the first set was easy for everybody. Everybody had been praised. Now they got the same type of exercise again. But the children that had been praised for intelligence had worse results in the 3rd set than in the first set. So their performance deteriorated. And the question is why? And it's maybe a topic for another video, but in short, praising somebody for being smart activates in that person the idea that smartness, intelligence is something inborn, fixed, stable. I cannot do much about this. And if with this attitude or mindset, she calls it later a fixed mindset, before it was like in theories of implicit theories of intelligence. Like, if I have such a mindset, then if I encounter a failure, then I attribute this to my ability and I have an overall negative outlook, and this creates a lot of psychological distress, and later on I will avoid similar tasks because I don't want to expose my lack of talent, of ability. So it's praising children or employees for being so great, having such great personalities, makes them actually vulnerable for future problems. Those that were praised for effort or strategy, they were more resilient later on because they knew if I work hard, if I have a growth mindset, if I put in the right effort, I can succeed later on. And so for them, a setback, a failure was just some kind of information to know what they need to improve. So observe a bit how you give feedback in your company, how you get feedback. Do you get feedback more for the person you are or your employees are, or do you give feedback related to effort or actions? So here it's unintended, because lots of parents, school teachers want to motivate. Team leaders want to motivate their team, and they think for many centuries, they believe the humanity was very negative. Now we have this positive psychology revolution. Now everybody needs to be positive. We need to compensate, but they don't make the distinction between praise for effort versus praise for ability. Now the second type is quite intentional. You may praise somebody to get the upper hand in a discussion. For example, this is taken from a book by Hamburg University Professor Friedemann Schulz von Thun, and he gives this as an example of an upper hand technique, so a technique to dominate the conversation, to make it impossible to be on equal footing. So the other person is pushed into an inferior position. So, for example, the supervisor may say, "Oh, that's very nice how you said this. I need to write Mrs. Meyerling, so I have to remember that phrase." So it's a compliment, but it's a compliment from a paternalistic side, like from the superior. So he's expressing very clearly that her position is lower than his, and she concedes somehow a compliment, but it's not a really compliment that puts them on equal footing. So it's so the typical reaction in such a situation is for her or the other part to blush a bit, to be coy about it, and say, "Oh, it's not really. I'm not really, or it was just." So you start to be modest about this and to defend, and thereby you accept the inferior position. So he suggests, for example, to answer like this. Like you could say, "Oh, I would trust yourself more with your own phrasing, Mr. Obermann. You are not so bad at it." Like, so she doesn't accept the inferior position, but she turns the situation around to have at least equal footing with her supervisor. Now, the third instance is also not intentional. Reactance is a phenomenon observed in social psychology that people often do the opposite of what they were previously doing if they feel that somebody is controlling them. So, for example, if you praise somebody for doing something and this person has a strong need for self-determination or for being in control, him or herself, the person may perceive your compliment like, "Oh, it's so great that you are finally reading a book," to a child or even to an adult that only knows smartphones. This may be intended to encourage the other person, but the actual effect may be that that person will never again pick up a book, because psychologically, if he or she would pick up the next book, it would be perceived as doing this because you made that compliment. So then the person will feel controlled by you. But if they stop reading books in that situation, they regain control and they are they defended themselves from your influence. So, and this happens quite often, not only with children, but also with adults. So you as a supervisor, as a colleague, may think you encourage something in the other person, but the other person perceives this as an interference in his or her self-determination, control, and may actually stop doing that. And I observed this with lots of students. So now I'm becoming more careful before I praise students for doing finally something, because people are different. Some people don't have this strong need for self-determination, but people that have, they were very sensitive to such comments. So once again, in psychology, it's not always black and white. This example shows us that we need to learn more about the people around us. How are they specifically? And we need to adapt to them, how we praise them, how we give them feedback, and they will not adapt to us. Now, a bit of homework. During the next week, observe how you give feedback to somebody and how you are given feedback, and see how often you praise and how you praise. Do you praise more effort or do you praise more ability? Do you observe maybe a difference when interacting with your children, if you have some, or with professionally? And also observe how you feel when giving and receiving feedback. Try to find instances where you feel that feedback you are receiving actually is somehow manipulative, and where you feel you want to, you don't want to be inferior to the other person, like in this upper hand example, with the compliment, like that's a great expression, I need to write it down. Maybe you find similar examples and think about how you could react to established at least the same level. I wish you much success. Please contact me if you want to have me as a guest speaker in your team, online of course, unless you're in Moldova. Every week I've budgeted 60 minutes for such free masterclasses. Just send me an email or contact me on LinkedIn. Bye bye.